today on Westmore Films, the best movies and shows from 2021. And now, special guest star host Hayden from Hayden's Entertainment Hour.
Hello, and welcome to the 20th annual Westmore Top 10 Best Movies of the Year Awards Show. That's right, me and Dalton Westmore are going to be going over our top 10 favorite movies of 2021 in no particular order besides how we both personally would rank them. Now, one thing that I have to say about this is we are a sponsored awards show. That's right, I have an ad read right here for a supplement that I think can help you get the sleep time that you need. Are you tired of watching Marvel movies? Do they almost put you to sleep? Well, what if I told you that there's a Marvel movie out there that could put you to sleep? That is the Eternals Sleep Supplement. That's right, The Eternals is one of the most boring MCU movies out there on Disney Plus right now, and it is free. Absolutely free. The only side effect is that you'll probably be quoting this terrible movie in some way, shape, or fashion. These characters will say dialogue that really makes you laugh. It'll have moments in the movie where you think you're watching a documentary you were forced to in high school. There will also be moments where the CGI literally looks so bad you'll swear you're playing the first Injustice game on PS3. I'm not kidding you, The Eternals is the sleepy time movie that you need, and yes, it's free. Absolutely free. Go to your Disney Plus subscription, watch this movie late at night, and fall asleep to just how absolutely boring it can be. Eternal Sleep Supplements. Disney is trying to put you to sleep. Now, it's a pretty good ad read, wasn't it?
Absolutely. I'm sure we'll get a lot of ad revenue from this video.
I'm sure that a certain will not try to sue the show and get us taken down.
Absolutely. You know, I'm pretty sure that we're safe from him and also Vin Diesel, if you've been keeping up on the lore of the Hayden's Entertainment podcast.
Vin Diesel is in prison, but there is a trial coming to prove his innocence, I'm sure. But if you've been paying attention to the lore, died at Vin Diesel's hands. And, you know, there are two camps that are split on it. Some people think it was a little too much. Other people think, you know, maybe it was the right thing to do. We'll never know. We'll have to await that Vin Diesel trial someday. But without further ado, let's get off this controversial topic. It's now time to go over our top 10 favorite movies of the year. But before we do that, let's go over some honorable mentions that have other movies we saw this year. I shall go first. So the movies in my honorable mentions include Saint Maud, Raya and the Last Dragon, Wrath of Man, Dream Horse, In the Heights, Luca, The Protégé, Free Guy, The Many Saints of Newark, King Richard, House of Gucci, Kong vs. Godzilla, A Quiet Place Part 2, Shang-Chi, Last Night in Soho, Belfast, Encanto, The Power of Dog, and No Time to Die. Dalton, what are your honorable mentions for 2021?
So most of my honorable mentions are TV shows, because the list of top 10 movies I'm going to be talking about is based off of my Letterboxd rankings. And so most of my honorable mentions are things that, as of the time of this video coming out, are not on Letterboxd for you to be able to rank. So my honorable mentions include Arcane, which is unironically the best animated show that I watched this year. Invincible, Star Wars Visions, What If, Inside, Mitchells vs. the Machines, America the Motion Picture, Army of Thieves, and Army of the Dead. I will have to say, before we get into the list, there's only one exception to this list, which has a single TV show that I think was worth talking about in the context of this list. So without further ado, let's get into the movies.
Alrighty, so Dalton, your top 10 movies of the year, starting with number 10. What was your 10th favorite movie of 2021?
We don't talk about dreams.
I disagree.
Number 10 for me would have to be Encanto.
We don't talk about Bruno here.
Well,
But anyways, Dalton, go ahead and give your thoughts on Encanto.
So pretty much, I went into the movie blind. I didn't know a whole lot about this going in. I mainly saw a couple teaser images. I don't think I ever watched any of the trailers. But I think that helped me enjoy the movie a lot more. I really enjoyed the experience I had with this. And while I think that, you know, Mitchell vs. Machines probably has like a more solid story to me, I really appreciate that this Disney movie or Pixar or whatever went into the directions that it did with its story. Even though, I think that the ending, could have been wrapped up better. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
But you do kind of have to make some concessions because this isn't Breaking Bad, this is a Disney movie.
Yeah, I'd say that's a fair assessment. I guess, yeah, I would agree with pretty much all those points on Encanto. I think I'm somebody that just hates the ending and the family getting the magic back and stuff, but I think for the most part, it's really enjoyable because, I wasn't expecting Disney to make something as good as what we got.
Yeah, the fact that, the whole conceit of the movie isn't like some mysterious shadow villain like other movies we could mention, but like it's just, the grandmother abusing her family, even if it was like unintentional. It was really interesting, and that kind of does undercut the ending with like how easily the family is able to get over it.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So, Hayden, what would you say was your top 10 movie?
You're too late, Spider-Man! Weed has been legalized!
All right. Well, my number 10 movie of the year is Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, Spider-Man to me has always been a character that I grew up loving. He was probably one of my favorite Marvel heroes of all time. Like, I grew up with those Raimi films, and you best believe I watched those Tobey Maguire films over and over again like crazy. Andrew Garfield wasn't really my thing, but I learned to appreciate him. And then I got to Tom Holland, and I was kind of mixed on him. Like, I thought that, Homecoming was good for the most part, but I felt like Spider-Man was a little reliant on other things in that movie. And then Far From Home was just like a really bad Disney Channel comedy, it felt like at times, and it was just kind of a mess of a Spider-Man movie with some messaging in there that didn't really make a whole lot of sense for what it was going for. There's especially a scene on the plane with Happy that I was just kind of like, I don't think you got that message right. But anyways, one thing that I got to say about Far From Home is that I went into this kind of blind, not knowing anything about it besides the fact that Melania, Dafoe, and just everybody was going to be back in it. And what I got was probably one of the best Spider-Man movies I've seen in quite some time. I love these movies especially because I think that over time, this is going to become one of the better Marvel movies in a lot of people's eyes, even though it is right now, just simply because it's really tightly written and really tightly paced the entire way through. I love in this movie how we see Peter struggle with the fact that his identity has been taken away. He might not have a relationship. People don't trust Peter Parker anymore, and it's affecting the people around him in more ways than one. So he tries to innocently go to Doctor Strange to ask for help, but ends up creating more of a problem than himself, messing with Strange's spell and letting all of these multiversal people come in and just wreak havoc all over New York City. One thing that I kind of love about this movie is that Peter has to make a lot of mature choices in his Spider-Man-isms, and the fact that he also, spoiler alert, loses somebody very close to him in the movie, which I think is really hard-hitting and really pushes the narrative forward. We did a podcast on this where you can go listen to our thoughts more on it if you want to hear our full thoughts, but I gotta say, this movie really blew me away because it really felt like, for once, Spider-Man in the MCU was finally becoming the Spider-Man that we know and love, and everybody in it is great. From Melania to Dafoe giving probably the best MCU villain performance in the entire MCU. It was nice to see Thomas Hayden Church back as Sandman, Jamie Foxx as Electro. I mean, just everybody that came back and reprised their roles that were great. And also, yes, spoiler alert, the two big Spider-Men that came back had me giddy and just, feeling like a kid again when they were on the big screen. I think Spider-Man Far From Home is a really good time, and I would definitely recommend that people check it out.
I'll probably be talking more about No Way Home when we get to its spot on the list.
Yep. So Dalton, what is your number 9 favorite movie of the year?
Mr. Anderson, I'm gonna kiss you right on the lips. Watch out.
Oh, Mr. Anderson, we're here to talk about your NFTs.
What are you talking about?
We're here to talk about your recent purchase of They're Taking the Hobbits to Isengard NFT that was recently auctioned off.
You can't scare me with this Gestapo crap.
The only way, Mr. Anderson, you can conform is by telling me why this super divisive movie right now is your 9th favorite movie of the year.
So here's the thing, because in preparation for watching this, I watched all the other Matrix movies with the Animatrix right after I watched this one. And so the thing is that the sequels, the original 2 sequels, I think do a very good job of following up on the story, even if people had a lot of problems with them. I think the thing that Resurrection struggles with is that, for like all the things that it does to advance the story, I think there are some areas where it tries to move forward that are a little weak. Like, for example, one of the good steps forward that it does is like having a more diverse cast in terms of the world of the Matrix, because there are human and program and machine characters like all interacting with each other in a lot of scenes. And I thought that was a really cool advancement from when we had last seen the world. But like in areas I don't think were that great, I didn't like the bots. Like, I really disliked them. I thought it was like a step down from the agents. But I can I understand their role in the story, but I thought they were a little goofy. And you could kind of feel the loss of Smith's original actor,
Hugo Weaving.
Yeah, Hugo Weaving. You could feel Hugo Weaving was gone, and it kind of annoyed me that they didn't even try to have the guy who they got to replace him do the same mannerisms like how they did when Smith possessed a guy previously.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I do think that Neil Patrick Harris did a really good job as the main antagonist in this, and I just really enjoyed the story for the first half. It kind of got a little weird, but I will say that Neo and Trinity have more chemistry in this single movie than they do in any of the other previous 3 movies. It's kind of hilarious, even though, those movies are a product of their time.
Yeah, I would probably agree with some of those statements. I haven't seen the movie yet. I've actually had a really tough time trying to find time to watch it, and every time I've gone to a theater, they aren't showing it because they opened up another showing for Spider-Man No Way Home. So
oh no,
maybe I'm just cursed to never see the movie. I don't know. Maybe a certain is preventing me from seeing it, and I have to see Spider-Man No Way Home a million times over. But
what would you say was your number 9 film of the year?
What, we some kind of Suicide Squad?
Well, my number 9 favorite film of the year was The Suicide Squad. I mean, I think one thing about The Suicide Squad, the original one, 2016, is it was such a garbage dumpster fire, and Jared Leto was such an ass the entire runtime. I honestly thought that they would never do a proper Suicide Squad right. I thought the DCEU was so far gone, you just couldn't fix this heaping trash pile of a universe. Well, then they kind of soft rebooted it, and then they're like, hey, Disney fired James Gunn from the Guardians films, even though they brought him back later, and he's free. Let's bring him in to do the Suicide Squad and do it proper. And that's essentially what we got here. The Suicide Squad is probably something that you could only imagine coming from the mind of James Gunn himself. I mean, it is this comic booky, gory, just super funny runtime of just pure joy, and just so many things in it work so well that I could not believe that James Gunn was somebody that was brought on and actually got to direct this because of how bad the DCU of recent had been. I like how the protagonist in Bloodsport, played by Idris Elba, is this guy that starts off, he acts like a villain, he doesn't care for his daughter, he doesn't really give a shit about anybody around him, and as the movie progresses and he starts to form a family bond with Ratcatcher and Peacemaker and King Shark and Polka Dot Man, he starts to become a good guy and show that he's not this hardened criminal like he wants to make himself out to be. I also love how characters like Ratcatcher have a lot of depth to them and actually have a lot of humanity and try to talk about how, despite them being criminals, they are still there trying to protect each other, and that people in the world have a lot of value and stuff. I also think that comic relief characters like King Shark are really well done. They could have been super annoying, but James can find a way to not make them feel annoying. It actually feels like their comedy is more natural, even if they are basically baby characters to most people. And John Cena, somebody that controversially has been called bad actor in the past, actually redeems himself here as Peacemaker and is even getting his own TV show because he's so good in it. I also think that the Thinker is one of the better villains in the DCEU for the short time we got him. Star the Conqueror is just great, and I am so glad that finally got adapted. And like I said earlier, I just love the fact that this movie talks so much about so many deep layered themes and also is so mature for what it is compared to the original. And I think the only complaint that I still really have about it is the Harley Quinn subplot. I'm still not really big on this one. I think if you cut it out, it really doesn't change a whole lot within the movie. I get that there is some narrative purpose for it, and it does have a little bit of a female liberation arc with it, but for the most part, I just didn't really care for her inclusion in the story that much, and I didn't really care for her sequence much. But overall, I really like The Suicide Squad. It's definitely a movie I I would recommend people check out, because honestly, it's the only DCEU movie I've watched where I can firmly say I would watch it over and over again.
And again, we'll be talking about the Suicide Squad later along in this list.
Yeah, there's also a podcast with me and Fahrenheit out on it, but I'm not going to plug my own stuff the entire time. But anyways, Dalton, what is your number 7 favorite movie number 8 favorite movie of the year?
Well, this is the first Shyamalan twist of this list, and also the only Shyamalan twist, in that my 8th favorite thing in 2021 wasn't even a movie. It was a TV show. And that would be Squid Game. The thing that killed Uncle Ben.
Uncle Ben, what happened? Squid Games. That's literally the whole meme. But, okay, this should be interesting because I've seen Squid Games. So give me your take on Squid Games.
So, I think the really enjoyable thing about Squid Game is that it's like one of those things where like all the moving pieces inside the story were really interesting to follow. Like all the POV characters, regardless of whether or not they're a hero or a villain, they feel fleshed out. They are like, they're interesting to follow. I'm repeating myself a lot because it's been a while since I saw the show.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like the music in it was good. Like all the reincorporations of the various creepy themes fit really well. And I really like how the show ended on like such like depressing, like a bittersweet note. It's just, like shows that get memes a lot, and usually it's for like nothing, but I think like all the memes that have come from Squid Game is a show of like how legitimately good it is. Mm-hmm. It's something that I would definitely check out after I finish watching. Like, I would want to revisit it at some point. Maybe after I finish watching through Breaking Bad, maybe not. I don't know. It depends on some of the other things that I was not able to get to in 2021.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. I think Squid Games has a lot of great commentary in it. I think that a lot of media outlets really misunderstood kind of the messaging of it. I mean, if you read some of the articles that came out after the show, I don't think a lot of people understood Squid Games. So it's kind of a tragedy.
Especially the people that thought it was criticizing communism instead of capitalism.
Yeah, I think some people that went over their heads a little bit. But yeah, Squid Games is a very good show. I would definitely recommend people watch it.
So what was your number 8?
You mark that frame and 8, you're entering a world of pain.
Well, my number 8 favorite thing of the year was The Tragedy of Macbeth, which was Joel Coen's new movie. Yes, Ethan Coen, his brother, was not involved.
The A24 film?
Yes, the A24 film.
I wish I had gotten around to seeing that.
I know. I found a screener for it and was like, yes, you bet I'm going to see this. But I'm a huge Coen Brothers guy. I love Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I love No Country for Old Men. I love The Big Lebowski. I love Fargo. I mean, their work is literally just like, I have most of their movies on Blu-ray or 4K right now, just simply because I love these two when they work together. But I also do like when these two do not work together. And Joel Coen is one of my favorite directors, and he decided to take a stab at the Macbeth lore, story, whatever you want to call it. And I think he does a really good job here. One thing that really shocked me with this is how stylized this movie is. Like, yes, you say the Coen brothers together definitely have a style when they make movies, but this movie is so stylized in a way that it doesn't even feel like a Coen brothers movie, which I think is kind of a good thing. I know some people have said they don't really like that it doesn't feel like a Joel Coen movie, but I kind of like that. It doesn't feel like something that he's made himself like 1,000 times over in his cinematography style and stuff like that. In this, it feels like a complete different director is making it, which is why I think I fell in love with it so much. Denzel really knocks it out of the park here as Macbeth. Like, I'm not even kidding you. Denzel has been phoning it in for quite some time. If you saw The Little Things that came out in January of 2021, he is phoning it in that entire movie with Jared Leto. He does not care to be there. But in this, you can tell he cares about the source material. You can tell him and Frances McDormand understand their chemistry and what they have to do with their characters. Corey Hawkins as Macduff is also really good in this. I think Catherine Hunter as one of the witches is really good in this. Harry Melling is a really good Malcolm in this. Brendan Gleeson is actually really good as King Duncan. Just, they did so many great things with this movie. A adapting that source material and putting some small inversions and twists on it, that honestly, I got to commend Joel Cohen for making this movie and also making it feel like something that I want to rewatch over and over again, just simply because it doesn't feel like any of his other movies. If you know what Macbeth is, if you've seen the original movies or you've seen the original play before, yes, you might go into it a little bit bored, but I'll say for the most part, this is a really good adaptation of Macbeth, and I would definitely recommend people check it out when it's on Apple Plus soon.
All right, well, I'll definitely be checking it out. It's on my list of things that I still need to watch from last year.
So, Dalton, what is your number 7 movie of 2021?
I hate Mondays.
Well, number 7 would be The French Dispatch.
Okay, yeah, that's a pretty good choice. I'll be talking about that one a little bit later, but go ahead.
So, if you've been in the shared Discord server we're both a part of, you know that like Fahrenheit has been showing me a couple of different Wes Anderson movies. So this is like, I think this is like the second or third. I don't remember which, but I really enjoyed how this movie was put together. I just love the monotone performances, the color palette, the cinematography, like the use of black and white contrasted with color. That shows up a lot. I love the recurring actors that were in this that were also in The Aquatic Life of Steve Zissou. I just love the whole setup of this being an anthology movie about the final stories of a newspaper before it gets shut down after the owner dies. It's just a really cool movie, and it has a lot of interesting characters to follow along throughout it.
Yeah, it really does. I will talk about this one a little bit later because I'll give some more thoughts on it when we get around to it or when it gets revealed on my list. So, yeah, I would definitely recommend The French Dispatch for your big West guy.
So, what would be your number 7?
What's it like being Matt Damon?
I don't know. I mean, I don't really know what it's like to be anybody else.
Well, my 7th favorite movie of the year was The Last Duel. Now, Ridley Scott is kind of controversial right now because of some comments that he made about how us millennials like to watch things on our phone rather than go to movie theaters. And I have a funny story with this movie. So I was like just fresh off class one day. I was like in the homework slump. I was like, I just need some escapism and stuff. So I decided to go see The Last Duel in a movie theater because I had heard Ridley Scott's comments, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to prove this old geezer wrong. I'm going to go see it with an audience of people. I paid for my ticket, walked in, and nobody else was in the theater. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe Ridley Scott might be right here. But I sat through this whole thing and was just mesmerized because, honestly, it is such a good movie. Like, Ridley Scott has not really made anything I've liked since The Martian, which was clear back in 2015. So whenever he does make something good, I have to point it out and acknowledge it. I love these medieval movies. I'm really sad that they're on their way out because, honestly, I think these types of movies still do have a market. Even if it does go to streaming, I think these types of movies still do need to be made. I like how this movie just simply is about two scumbag guys that are lying about their side of this rape story the entire time, and then Jodie Comer is basically the good shining character of the movie and is trying to give the whole truth. And it's one of the first times that a rape allegation was actually brought up. This was actually the first time that it happened, and I love how the movie treats the material that it's working with in this serious manner pretty good for the most part. But I will admit the actual rape scene that goes on in the movie actually could have been cut down a lot more. I think it goes on a little too long, and honestly Ridley might have not understood like how offensive it could have been to some audiences. But really, this entire movie is so well acted, besides Ben Affleck, who looks like he got fresh off the set of the Snyder Cut, put on a blonde wig, drank a bunch, sat down, and started acting against Driver in a terrible way. But everybody else is doing great in this. Matt Damon's terrific in this. I like how he starts off as kind of like this bummy character that serves under the lords and then starts to build himself back up as the noble knight that he was. I like how Adam Driver starts off as the noble knight but then becomes sleazy and abuses his power. And I like how Jodie Comer is the same character as she started with the entire way through and how pure she is. The actual fight that occurs in the movie is really good itself too, and I love how powerful the ending is and everything that occurs with that. I don't want to spoil too much because I really just want people to see this movie and see that they did miss out on a really good movie this year, because honestly, The Last Duel is one of those medieval dramas that I think a lot of people could use in their lives.
This was a movie that I think mainly got put off by, you know, as you said, the whole sexual assault stuff.
I get that.
Yeah, you know, maybe Ridley, people didn't want to watch it because they didn't think you handled it that well.
Yeah, which I get that if people don't think he handled it well. I think he did for the most part, but I definitely get why. And Ridley, no, I'm not going to watch it on my phone when I rewatch it again. I'm going to rewatch it on my iPad, you geezer. But, yeah, so, Dalton, now I must ask you, what is your 6th favorite movie of 2021?
Bruce, it's been 5 years. You still owe me $16.
Well, it's a movie that I know that you and Fahrenheit really enjoyed, and that would be the Snyder Cut.
Get out. Get out of your own awards show. Leave. Get out. Boo this man. I wanted the Eternals at number 6 and you didn't give it to me. Boo this man. Go ahead, I guess. Talk about it.
So, let's not beat around the bush. The original cut of Justice League that Joss Whedon shat out is garbage. I never want to rewatch that again. Not even for my boy Steppenwolf, the funniest character in the DC cinematic universe.
Mother is calling to me. Mother said it's my turn on the box.
Yes, so like it's honestly amazing that, Justice League would have been great if, not only Joss Whedon hadn't ruined it with his stupid humor and questionable tendencies, and also, Warner Brothers fucking with Zack like how they did for like every movie that they've ever worked on together to some degree. So like it was really cool to like see Zack's unfiltered vision. Like, all the stuff that was like originally from him, it wasn't just reshot. It's great. Like when I first saw this movie, it had me in tears several times. It was like really great. Ray Fisher, who got screwed over in the Whedon cut, like he is the heart of the movie and he's amazing in it. This film like addresses a lot of the problems that people have with the Whedon cut and with Zack's earlier movies. And I think that this film does a really good job of showing that, a lot of people were a lot harsher than they should have been in judging Zack's movies. But in retrospect, I think this movie probably should have been a little bit lower, or even I should have gone so far as to say that it should have been an honorable mention. Because, there are a lot of problems that are addressed in this movie and are fixed, but there are also a lot of problems that are still there. And also, this movie is 4 hours long, so I don't blame people for not watching it. I watched it twice last year, and I don't know if I would ever want to revisit it, even though I think it's really good.
I remember having to watch it in parts because I couldn't sit through the whole thing.
Yes, but what did you think of it?
Well, if you've listened to my original podcast, I kind of said how this Zack Snyder tone has not really been through me in the DCU. It's just not for me. I feel like I thought that a lot of the movie was just kind of basically minor improvements in certain elements over the Whedon cut, but I just thought dialogue and the way the story went and how characters acted and what their characters became just wasn't really my bag the entire runtime. And I'm not really a big fan of when Snyder always does these Jesus comparisons in his movies, or when his themes get really meta to his own work he's done in the past. And a lot of this felt like Zack Snyder just doing that same thing that he's been doing for years over and over again. So it just wasn't for me. I wouldn't say it was one of the worst movies I saw this year by any means, because there was a lot worse garbage that I saw, but it just wasn't really a movie that was for me. And I think that even if I were to revisit it, my opinion isn't going to change much, because I'm not somebody that's enjoyed the Snyderverse like other people have.
Mm-hmm. Well, if my Zack Snyder video ever comes out, it will hopefully be out this year. So maybe I'll be able to present a more nuanced look at what Snyder was trying to go for in his superhero movies.
Yeah.
But we'll save that for when that eventually comes out. So what did you put at number 6?
Got milk?
Well, number 6 for me is a movie you just talked about, The French Dispatch. To give my thoughts on The French Dispatch a little bit without talking too much about it, I love that it's basically this love letter to journalism, and that Wes Anderson is essentially just talking about how important storytelling is. Each of the individual stories themselves are great. I love the one with Benicio del Toro as the prison inmate who makes the paintings that are painted into the wall, and I love how that entire story plays out. I like the Timothée Chalamet one for the most part, but I think it kind of drags somewhat in the middle, and then the ending part with Frances McDormand inner monologue is kind of one of the best parts of the entire thing. I also love in the movie the story with Jeffrey Wright and the police chief and his son getting kidnapped. I think that's actually my favorite one of the entire thing. The Owen Wilson one is probably the most forgettable, but what it serves as is kind of important because it's the vehicle that sets up the universe. If you love dry humor, if you love colorful color palettes, if you love characters snarking at each other and just having fun with source material, then you're going to enjoy The French Dispatch. I know some people that hated the movie. They were on their phone the entire time watching it because they didn't really get it. So I will warn you, not a lot of Wes Anderson's movies are the most like entertaining things on the planet, but they certainly are made for a certain audience that loves filmmaking and loves dry humor, because that's what Wes Anderson is great at. Great cinematography, great characters, great dry humor, and just great stories and worlds to play around in. Definitely watch The French Dispatch if you love Wes Anderson.
Yep.
So Dalton, what would be your fifth favorite movie of the year?
Hi, I'm Saul Goodman. Did you know that you have rights? The Constitution says you do.
Well, I think, to get some help, I think we better call Saul to help talk about this next movie.
Oh.
Because this movie is Nobody.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about this movie a little later, but go ahead and share your thoughts on it, because there's a lot to say about Saul Goodman's unhingedness in this movie.
So, when I watched this, I watched it over the summer for a film streaming thing that Hayden hosted. And so, before this, I'd never watched Breaking Bad. I mainly knew about it through memes on YouTube.
Clearly, his taste in women is the same as his taste in lawyers, only the very best, with just the right amount of dirty.
But this movie was, really good. Oh, and just for some more clarification, I haven't seen the John Wick movies either. But, this movie sold me on a lot of things. It sold me on Bob Odenkirk as an actor. He is fantastic in this. I love the story and the themes that it's dealing with about whether or not it's possible for a hitman to actually move on from his past, or if it's worth doing it. The action in this is amazing. The soundtrack really complements the tone and the setting. And I would suggest that, if you enjoyed Bob Odenkirk's performance in Breaking Bad, you would definitely do this, because, it sold me on the fact that he could do a leading role. And which is why, after I finish Breaking Bad, most likely I'm probably going to pick up Better Call Saul at some point. But
definitely check out Better Call Saul. Great show.
So yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about Nobody right now or save it for when you talk about it on your spot on the list.
I'll save it for down the road. I got some things to share about it, but
So what would you say would be your number 5 film of the year?
Shut up! Shut the fuck up! You have no right to take me. Shut up!
So my number 5 favorite film of the year was Licorice Pizza. The title is very off-putting to a lot of people, but that is simply because they have not seen a Paul Thomas Anderson movie. He's one of my favorite directors. I love everything Paul Thomas Anderson has made. Not really Inherent Vice that much, but I love mostly everything else that he's made. Boogie Nights, Punch Drunk Love, There Will Be Blood. I mean, this guy has made so many great movies in his career as a filmmaker. And I got to admit, Paul Thomas Anderson is one of those directors that when I just hear he's making a movie, I already know I'm going to see it on the big screen. And Licorice Pizza is great because not only does it have Philip Seymour Hoffman's son in the first ever starring role in this movie, but it's also got the first female lead actress in its movie also. One thing that I think that I like about this movie is the fact that it kind of feels like it's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which was that Tarantino movie that came out in 2019, because it's like this 70s style throwback movie that's a slice of life that doesn't really have a story. It's just a lot of hijinks and stuff that occurs between these two leads who do kind of have a problematic age gap. You see, the female lead in the movie is 25 and the male lead is 15, and that's really put off a lot of people from seeing it when they hear about that. But honestly,
I can imagine.
Yeah, but honestly, when you watch the movie and the way the narrative plays out, honestly, you don't really think about it too much, and it is kind of nice to watch their semi-relationship grow. But I think one thing that I just really appreciate about this movie is how it tackles maturity, because these two characters are so different in the way that they look at maturity and growing up. One's a 15-year-old naive boy that really doesn't understand the problems he's getting into trying to be this mature businessman like he's trying to set himself up to be, and the 25-year-old female protagonist is trying to act like an adult, but she doesn't have that childlike whimsicalness to herself where she doesn't realize it's okay to cut back and have fun. And I think that's something that I like about the movie, is how it addresses those themes. I love the music, the cinematography, the characters, like Bradley Cooper just having a small role in the movie, and Sean Penn also. Like, that's great, just to have these big time actors have very small roles in these movies and stuff. And I just love how Paul Thomas Anderson writes his characters in the story to see where they go. He doesn't always have a clear-cut ending for them. He just likes to take them on a ride, and wherever they finish is where they finish. I definitely recommend checking it out if you're a big Paul Thomas Anderson fan, and also if you love these types of 70s throwback movies. All right, so Dalton, what is your fourth favorite movie of the year?
Prepare to get some dubs as Bloodsport when he drops in Fortnite.
Well, it's actually a movie that you talked about already, and it would be The Suicide Squad.
All right, we'll let you go ahead and talk about this one.
So, to this day, I have never seen the original Suicide Squad. I tried to watch it, but I cringed out 5 minutes in, and I've not gone back since.
All that chit chat's gonna get you hurt.
But James Gunn's superhero movies have been great. Guardians of the Galaxy is still one of my favorite Marvel movies, even though I probably need to give the second one a second chance, because I was a little about it the first time I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
But after hearing about how much everyone loves it, it makes me want to revisit it again. But the Suicide Squad is amazing. To me, it's the flip side of No Way Home.
Mm-hmm.
If you know, No Way Home, I'll talk more about it later when we get to where I put it on the list. But No Way Home is a good example of the best that superhero movies could be from a more approachable side for general audience people. But the Suicide Squad is everything that superheroes could be when you actually allow things to be depicted realistically, like violence. The violence adds a lot of weight to what I know is missing from the original Suicide Squad, especially with the opening where the Suicide Squad actually does feel like an expendable group of people, because most of them die in the opening. How you said earlier, the acting is great. Idris Elba and John Cena are really good in this. The supporting cast of characters, even though they seem like they should be annoying, are amazing. Margot Robbie was actually pretty good too. I have not seen her Harley Quinn in anything before this, but I enjoyed her performance in this. Even though I can kind of understand why you say her inclusion felt a little weird, but overall I think this is just a really good movie. The only problems I really had with it were a few small plot points, to think you're being implied to sexually assault Starro, which I didn't know if that really needed to be in the movie. But overall, I think it's definitely something that you should check out if you have a stomach for violence.
Yeah, that's fair.
So what would your number 4 be, Bacon?
So
or Hayden?
Call me whatever you want.
These are frame blue jeans.
So my number 4 movie of the year is Nightmare Alley, which is the Guillermo del Toro remake of the original Nightmare Alley, which is so old you can only find it on the Criterion Collection, which I find strange. But I've never seen the original Nightmare Alley, so I went into this not really knowing a whole lot about the original book or the original movie. And what I got out of it was probably one of the better Guillermo del Toro movies, I would say. Now, Guillermo is a director I like, but one of my bigger issues with him as a director is his movies never stick the landing. It always feels like when it gets to that third act, it just cannot stick the landing, and it just feels too rushed and overly complex for no reason. But with this movie, it's kind of the opposite. He sticks the landing here with his ending, but the beginning is very slow and hard to get into, and I will admit that's probably because I'm somebody that's very impatient about how he was setting up his world, because it really felt like it wasn't going anywhere, and then when you do understand where it's going, you're like, oh, okay, well, the rest of this is going to be a breeze, and it is. But I like this movie because I said on my podcast that it reminded me of Uncut Gems a lot, because it has this character that is making a lot of dumb choices, but you don't want to see the character fail. You want to actually see him succeed a little bit, even if he is a sleazy guy. And what I like about this movie is how Bradley Cooper is this mind reader that is going around basically abusing people that have lost ones in their lives and saying how he can communicate with them from the dead. And what I like about it the entire runtime is that we watch his lies slowly entangle him into more and more disastrous scenarios and stuff. And I think that the way the narrative narrative plays out and what he gets at the ending for his punishment is honestly really satisfying. But I think what I like overall in this movie also is the supporting cast that comes with it. Ron Perlman's here, Kate Blanchett is here, and she does a great job. Richard Jenkins is in this movie and does a fantastic job as well. There are just so many characters in Guillermo del Toro movies and actors that work with him that do great with his material that you really get immersed in the world that it's in. One thing that I gotta say about this movie is I'm really sad that it bombed and a lot of people did not see it in theaters, because honestly, watching this movie in a theater with people really blew me away, and I think it enhanced the experience. And I hope that Guillermo down the road gets another chance to make a movie that will put us all back in theaters again, because honestly, this was a really great time, and it's a movie I would recommend checking out if you like watching movies that feel like Uncut Gems with the way its narrative goes, even if it's not the same as Uncut Gems.
Well,
so Dalton,
maybe I'll check it out.
Yeah. So Dalton, what was your number 3 movie of the year?
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
It is my number 3 ranked film is my Arrakis, my Dune.
Yeah, that's a good one to put there. Oh man, Dune's on my list too. I mean, I could talk about it with you, I guess, a little bit, but I'll let you go first. I'll let you lead into it.
So Dune is something that I was like looking forward to, like when it originally got delayed. Like I listened through the entire book a couple of months after I watched through the Lord of the Rings, and like comparing these two, you can really understand like why the comparisons get made. Like the thing that like, you know, I was kind of worried about when I was like, you know, watching the trailers or listening through the book is that, you know, when trying to like bring it out in the big screen today and get people interested, that, you know, they would either make it feel too evocative of Star Wars or they would try to make it too distant from Star Wars. The actual movie, it feels like the first part of like a grand epic story. It's not the feeling that I've really gotten from a lot of movies or even things that I've seen this year. It was really nice. All the actors do a really good job in this. The music is great. Hans Zimmer did a really good job, or whoever they got for him. I don't think it was Hans Zimmer. I could be wrong.
It was.
It was? Oh, then he did a good job with it. And obviously, you know, as part of the Dune agenda, the memes have been great from this as well.
Yeah, the memes have been great for this.
Honestly, the only problem that I have with it is that sometimes, you know, the more muted colors can get in the way. But honestly, that isn't a big problem for me. I think the only problem that I really have with it is since I've read the book, you know, I'm kind of a little sad that a lot of the character moments got cut out. Probably mainly to like make the story flow better since this is only part 1. I kind of feel like Lady Jessica suffered the most from this, but other things like Dr. Yue's betrayal of everyone kind of felt a little gutted, but that's the kind of sacrifice you have to make for adaptation. But this movie was really good. Like, I know, especially since I watched it with siblings, with the first time I saw it, like they were in awe when the sandworm appeared fully for the first time, and it was really cool seeing that. So yeah, if you have not seen this movie, please watch it. We need part 2. The Dune agenda needs to be fulfilled.
We definitely do need part 2. I'll feed into that a little bit more when we get to where it is on my list.
So what was your number 3 for this year?
You're not that lawyer on late night television, are you?
Better Call Saul.
So my number 3 is a movie you already mentioned, and it is Nobody. So Nobody, like you kind of touched on, it's great to see Bob Odenkirk in a role like this because he's more of a comedic guy. He did a show called Mr. Show with David Cross for many years. He's also Saul Goodman on both Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. But one thing that really intrigued me about this movie is that Bob Odenkirk trained about 5 years, I think it was, to do the stunts for this movie. Yes, he did his own stunts in the movie, and he did all of the choreography, which is why I think it impressed me more than anything else, to see a man in his age, in his condition, like Bob Odenkirk, doing stunts and crazy stuff like this. One thing that I love...
Probably why he was in the hospital.
Yeah, that could be too. But I mean, for one thing that I love about this movie is just it's so much of a fun ride the entire hour and 30 minutes to where you'll never get bored with this movie while watching it. I love how it's this comedic take on John Wick in a way, and I think that picking Bob Odenkirk to be that comedic John Wick works a lot. I think that he's a really great character with a lot of layers beneath him, and I also love how during the movie we do see him kind of struggle with the fact that he had this normal, ordinary family life, and he kind of tossed it away a little bit because he wanted to get back into that feeling of fighting other people again and stuff. And I do like how his wife is very understanding in the movie and doesn't blame him for anything that's happened, and that one day he hopes that he can see her again and stuff, and that everything's going to be okay. But one thing that I love about it is the great action and choreography with it. I love all the humorous moments. Like there's a great moment where Hutch Mansell goes through this Russian mob place. He burns all of the money. He takes a painting. He sits down and eats a steak while he discusses with the mob boss destroying his entire business and stuff. I love the ending with Rizza, Christopher Lloyd, and himself just going down and gunning all of these Russian mobsters. Just, there are so many great things about this movie that I almost have to crown it my favorite action movie of the year, just simply because it was such a great action-packed thrill ride. And if there is a rumored sequel coming out, you best bet I'm going to see it, because Bob Odenkirk is great in this. I love the entire supporting cast, and just overall, it's a really good movie. Yes, my only knock on it is that it does feel like a John Wick carbon copy in some areas, but other than that, that doesn't hold it back from being my third favorite movie of the year. So Dalton, what is your second favorite movie of the year?
But you're the one getting smoked, Gummy!
Well, Spider-Man, it was a really hard choice, but I think I made the right decision in saying that Spider-Man No Way Home is number 2 for me.
Good pick. Good pick. You have a sadistic choice. Let die. Let die the woman you love, or suffer in Michigan.
Yeah, you touched on a lot of this movie, so I won't talk about it too much. But, you know, I was like a little concerned because of, you know, ranked this movie pretty high. And you know how he does, like, he rarely ranks something high because
The Eternals is the second best movie that came out this year. I clapped when I saw it.
Oh yeah, you know, I've only seen like the first 10 minutes when we recorded this, and I've been clapping so hard that my hands hurt.
I applauded it for being different.
I was expecting this movie, even if it wasn't good, I was expecting to have fun with it. I was not expecting it to be as legitimately good as it was. I think, like, you know, the other MCU Spider-Man movies, I think they've been good Marvel movies. Maybe Homecoming, it's a little unfair to say that about, but definitely Far From Home is a okay Marvel movie. But like No Way Home is like the first time that like I walked out of the theater and I was like, dang, that was a really good Spider-Man movie. And of course, like how you said, all the actors in this are fantastic, especially like all the returning characters. It was really nice for them to get like a final send-off of this movie. Willem Dafoe is probably my favorite performance in this entire movie, aside from Tom Holland. Dude, if you haven't seen this movie, like, go watch it, please. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's one of the few times I'll say go watch a Marvel movie, like, right now.
Exactly. Like, what are you waiting for? Go watch the movie.
Yeah, really, it's a really good movie. I would definitely recommend people check it out. Yeah, like, this movie is pretty important for the MCU going forward. I know I already kind of spoiled, like, hey, Toby and Andrew are in here, but like the ending I don't want to give away because it's just really powerful ending.
Yeah, exactly. The plot is amazing. It's even more amazing when you remember that this movie builds off of Jake Gyllenhaal posting Spider-Man's IP before he dies.
Basically. Oh, man.
But Hayden, what would you say is your number 2 pick for this year?
Not like here. Here everything is soft and smooth.
So my second favorite movie of the year was also my Arrakis, my Dune. You touched on a lot of this. I was just mesmerized because I'm somebody that's seen David Lynch's Dune, and I kind of think that movie has some redeeming qualities, but not really a ton of them. And I will admit, seeing this adaptation really put a big smile on my face, and I have read part of the book and stuff like that. Just Dune as a franchise is one of those that I really hope takes off because, like you said, everything about it works really well. But I also think the one thing that made the movie work the best was because Dean Villeneuve took on this project, and he's somebody that's made like Blade Runner 2049, Arrival, Sicario. So like he's done some of these movies with thicker themes and stuff like that. One thing that I love about it is how this movie has like so many great characters and world building elements to it that it does feel in some ways people have compared it to like, oh, this is our generation Star Wars in a way. We're going to grow up with this great trilogy, or oh, it's going to be like Lord of the Rings. And I can definitely see that comparison. The score is great. The storyline is great. I love everything about the movie. I love the way the scenarios play out in it. I love watching Arrakis. I got to actually see it in IMAX, so I think that enhanced my experience a little bit more. And I think I would agree with you on some of your points. Some of the story beats to me are a little inconsistent at times. I think that Lady Jessica does lose a little bit of agency after a certain point in the movie. But I gotta say, the number one thing that I love about this movie is the super sexy Baron Harkonnen. I mean, that sexy ass blob coming across the table to kiss to kiss Oscar Isaac on the lips, and then Oscar Isaac breathes into his mouth and he chokes out and almost dies, and I broke down on the floor crying because I was like, they can't kill my baby Harkonnen. And then it turns out he's alive, and he's actually been bathing himself in the Taco Bell wing sauce trying to revive himself. But yeah, definitely Dune is one of those movies that I recommend everybody checks out. I think the ending has a little bit of a weird spot, but I do get that it's part one. It's literally one of the best movies you'll see this year. Just turn off all the lights in your house, turn up your TV, and experience Arrakis like you should have when you saw it in theaters.
This should be interesting to see. Maybe we have the same number one film.
Maybe we do. Maybe we do. So my number one movie is The Eternals.
No!
O greatest of kings, indulge me in this friendly Christmas game.
My number one movie of the year is The Green Knight.
Well, what a surprise, because that is also my number one film of the year.
Hey, we did it, confetti and fireworks. Well, I think you and I should have predicted this because we did a podcast on this movie together, and we both at the ending were like, man, it's going to be hard to top this one, you know?
And we were right. So I'm not going to talk about it too much. I'm going to say that if you want to hear me and Hayden talk more about it, definitely go check the podcast. I'm going to be putting all the podcast links mentioned here in the description or in the comment section.
Yeah.
But this is a great movie to dig into. I actually got it for Christmas, and I am probably going to rewatch it again at some point because I'm definitely going to be making a video digging more into it from the sense of it being an adaptation. The Green Knight was like, it kind of gave me that sense like Dune, like it was a grand epic adventure, even though like, you know, the whole thing of the movie is that's kind of a twist on your typical hero's journey. Like the setting of the movie, as like someone who like really enjoys Arthurian lore, I loved it. I would definitely recommend it to people who are willing to put up with like more like cinema type things like The French Dispatch. It's probably not going to be for everyone, especially because like sometimes the movie can get intense, whether that's sexual stuff or like heavy themes. But I think it's worth checking it out if you're able to handle that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think I kind of love this story of young Gawain. I like him as a protagonist a lot. I'm somebody that says if I had the choice for this year's Oscar, I would definitely give Dev Patel the Best Actor Oscar because honestly, I think his performance is that good. I love how we watch him symbolically struggle through the 5 virtues of a knight. I love the world building of this thing. I just love how like open and big and beautiful this movie feels compared to like most other A24 films that have come out. Like I love The Lighthouse, don't get me wrong, but it's very self-contained on its island. In this, it feels like Gawain can travel to like 5 different places and it would be these beautiful open landscapes and stuff. And it's a really good movie in the color palette department, in the themes department, in the acting department. Like you said, it gets really intense in parts. Just it is such a good movie that the ending literally left me speechless all the 4 times that I have seen it this year. I mean, literally, this is one of those movies that I definitely can see growing to becoming one of my favorite movies of all time if I rewatch it more and more over the years. And definitely check out this movie just simply because it is a powerhouse of cinema that I really hope we get to see more movies made like this in the future. Because like I said, I love these medieval dramas. I really want more of them. I don't know why Hollywood hates them, but We did it, Dalton. We got through the top 10 best movies that we saw in 2021.
Yes, well, thank you for hosting. And remember, if you enjoyed Hayden, make sure to check his podcast. It can be found on a lot of different platforms. I'll link it to the main thing that I'll be getting these links from in the description and in the pinned comment. And also, if you enjoyed us talking about things, you could also check out the video that we did on Whiplash earlier last year. Thanks for coming on, and I'll see you guys next time.
Well, that will conclude our edition of the Dalton Westmore 2021 Best Films of 2021 Awards. I would like to remind you guys that Eternal Sleep Supplements are free on Disney Plus right now, and you and your family can have a great nap together watching the brand new Eternals movie. Remember, Eternal Sleep Supplements. They're going to put you to sleep watching this stupid, overrated movie. That's all that we have from this awards ceremony. Good night, everybody.